You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Haristadoulou.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Haristadoulou, and it's middle of the week Wednesday, which means we are turning the page, and this time looking at week number 12 of the NFL. And for Thursday Night Football, we're staring down the barrel at a Buffalo Bills team going into Houston to take on the Texans in what is an interesting AFC clash. Two teams in slightly different positions, but both in positions where I do say that I think both these teams need the win. And sure, you could argue maybe Houston needs it a bit more because their playoff hopes are not nearly as bright as Buffalo's. Buffalo's kind of in a position where they need this win just as much, if not maybe just a hair less than Houston does. So really fun matchup. Really looking forward to this one here. I think this is going to end up being a really good Thursday Night Football game. A little bit more of a defensive stand than anything else. But comment down below. Let me hear from you. Thoughts, opinions on the matchup, who you like and dislike and why. And as always, a reminder, we're not here for gambling. We're not here for betting advice. I'm here for the love of the game and just talk some football with you all. So if that's for you, great. If it's not, also great. That being said, we look at this Bills and Texans matchup here, and first things first, one of the bigger stories surrounding the Houston Texans over the last few weeks has been the absence of CJ Stroud, and it sounds like Davis Mills is going to get the nod once again at quarterback for the Houston Texans. So you got a Buffalo Bills defense coming in, and this one, no slouch by any means, allowing just 170 yards per game through the air. That is good for second best in the NFL. And that's one of those numbers that I don't want to take away from it, but I did notice, and this, because this is one of those things you don't always remember to look at kind of deals when you're trying to run numbers on games. Second fewest passing attempts also faced this season. So I'm not saying that number's that skewed, because when they face passing opportunities, they do a great job of shutting it down. They have an unbelievable group in that secondary from the cornerback room to the safety room. But just something I did notice there, that the number's low, but they're also not facing as much because teams are finding a lot of success running the football, and we'll get into that in a second about Buffalo. But you have a tough pass defense you're going up against, and Davis Mills over the last couple of weeks has guided the Houston Texans to about 260 or so yards per game over these last couple of starts for them, and en route to a couple of victories as well. That being said, I do think that it's probably in the Texans' best interest to maybe try and rely a little bit less on Davis Mills' arm in this contest and more on your stable of running backs. The reason I say that is because, of course, like I said, the run defense in Buffalo has not been great by any stretch of the imagination. They have 5 different games this season where they've nearly allowed about 200 yards or more rushing. 3 of the games going north of 200, a couple of those games being just underneath around 189. I think the other game was 197. So very close and essentially 200 yards rushing on the ground. You're basically looking for another first down in that 189-yard game. But it's been tough to stop the run over there in Buffalo, and for a varying amount of reasons. Obviously, injuries have kind of plagued the linebacker room, the defensive line, and it's kind of just been one of those things where you lose a guy, you get a guy back, you lose another guy, but ultimately leading to a situation where stopping the run has been the Achilles heel of this Bills defense this season. Now, I kind of look at what Miami has done in their 2 games against Buffalo this season as kind of like the playbook for going up against this Buffalo Bills team and beating them. I think limiting Josh Allen's possessions, slowing down the game. You want to try and get, in an ideal world, one of those drives that takes anywhere from 5, 6, 7 minutes, chewing up the clock, making Josh Allen have to just sit and pace back and forth on the sideline, waiting for his defense to get off the field, and put him in that position where he feels like he needs to go out and score. Because I feel like that's where you can get the better of Josh Allen. So limiting his possessions, controlling the game clock, and running the football. And obviously Miami has a guy like Devon Achane, and he found a ton of success in the 2 games he faced Buffalo against this season. You don't have a Devon Achane on this roster in Houston, but you do have some good, solid running backs in Damian Pierce and, of course, Nick Chubb as well. So I do think there is an opportunity to find success in this game. You just got to be tough. You got to be physical up front, get those running lanes open, and expose what has been a poor run defense to this point in the season in Buffalo. I just don't see a real pathway to success relying on Davis Mills throwing the football 30-plus odd passing attempts, and if you're not really attempting to run the football very often. I just feel like that's kind of a recipe for a disaster and an ultimate loss in a situation where, as your season currently stands at 5-5, you got to keep trying to find wins where you can, and a win over this Buffalo Bills team would be huge for you. On the flip side, I look at Josh Allen, what he's going up against, and it honestly does not get any easier. It honestly gets more difficult. Now, Josh Allen's obviously currently on a potential second back-to-back opportunity of MVP earnings here with the way he's been playing this season. Now sitting on 28 total touchdowns scored on the year. He obviously had the 3 passing and 3 rushing touchdowns last week with about 350 yards of total offense put together by himself en route to a big victory over a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that a lot of people really like in the NFC. Now, he's got a tough test though. Houston's defense has been unbelievable, and it's a shame that the offense has struggled the way it is and has dealt with the adversity that it has this season, because Houston's got arguably the best defense in the NFL in terms of just locking teams down, preventing them from scoring, and preventing them from being downright able to even move the football. Houston is second to potentially none, maybe one other defense, maybe 2. Like, there's arguments that could be made. But in terms of points per game allowed, yards per game allowed, Houston's running with the best of them right now. And they're littered with talent. You look at from the front to the back of the defense, Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter are 2 of the best edge rushers in terms of a tandem in the NFL right now as it currently stands. They're sitting at well north of 90 pressures total as a combined duo. Couple that with the fact that they've got 70 would be crazy, 17 sacks on the season as that pass rushing duo. It's been very problematic for teams this year, and it's one of those things where if they could get a little more from the interior guys who have been unbelievable plugging up holes in the run game, you'd have yourself a top 5 pass rush unit right now. But as it currently stands, they're hanging around somewhere along the lines of like upper third of the NFL, maybe top half, depending on the numbers you're looking at. Then as you move further back into the defense, linebacker room is by no means filled with slouches. You, of course, have Azeez Al-Shaair, very effective linebacker at what he does, especially coming up in the run and plugging up holes there. You have Henry Totuo as well. If I'm saying his name wrong, excuse me on that one. But you have some really good guys in that room there. And then, of course, the secondary. Derek Stingley, amongst the best in the NFL at what he does as a cornerback. He is in the top 5 or so of passer rating and completion percentage allowed so far this season amongst cornerbacks. He is unbelievable at what he does. And Kamari Lassiter, opposite of him, has really turned into the best case Robin to Derek Stingley's Batman you could possibly have asked for. And the safety room is also no slouches by any means. This whole defense is filled with either guys that are big name or guys that are near the top of their position who might not have the flashy name, but when you really boil it down to what they do and how effective they are at their positions, they are amongst the best at what they do as well. So it's going to be a tough day for Josh Allen, and I'll be curious to see if he's able to run amok the way he has against the rest of the league so far this year. We have seen him struggle against some of the other really good defenses. I mean, it's crazy to say, but I mean, you look at the Patriots defense he ran into a handful of weeks ago where they upset them primetime football in Buffalo. On top of that, this is not an easy defense, and I don't think it's one that Josh Allen is just going to simply run away against and be able to just dominate completely. Unless things go extremely south for the offense of Houston and they're putting the defense in bad situations, I don't really see a realm where Josh Allen's going for 6 more touchdowns and pushing north of 350 total yards. This feels like a grinded out type of game. And a lot of that, in my opinion, will boil down to just how effective this run game that Buffalo has will be against, again, a stout Houston Texans defense. I kind of alluded to it earlier. The guys that they have in the middle there, Sheldon Rankins and Tim Settle, have been excellent plugging up running lanes. And then any of the open running lanes are being all bottled up completely by Azeez Al-Shaair and Henry Totuo. So you have a tough group of guys to run the football against, but James Cook is in the backfield for Buffalo, and I do think you're going to need to call on him in this game, and he's got to find success because, once again, no Dalton Kincaid, no Curtis Samuel. Buffalo's been relying on depth guys in the wide receiver room to really get things going for them in the passing game. And then, of course, you have Keon Coleman, who was a healthy scratch last week. A lot of it really is the Josh Allen show and making things happen with Khalil Shakir and a bunch of other guys, coupled with James Cook, who obviously has been phenomenal this season. Second in rushing. He's got 5.3 yards per attempt. But this run defense in Houston, unbelievable at what they do. Third fewest in yards per game allowed, 3.9 yards per attempt to rushing, which puts them top 5 in the NFL. It's going to come down to taking care of the ball and taking what the defense gives you for Josh Allen and this Buffalo Bills offense. Like I said, I do not think this offense just runs wild on Houston. It's going to take a serious collapse on Houston's offensive side, in my opinion, to find themselves in a situation where Josh Allen and the Bills are just outright blowing them out. If that does end up happening, I'll eat my words, I guess. I just have a really hard time seeing it go that way. As for who I think is going to win the contest, though, and ultimately come away with the W here, I do really like the situation that Houston is in right now, especially seeing Buffalo on the at home and bringing them over on the road. And already having seen Buffalo get upset and have some uglier games against certain teams that you maybe wouldn't have expected, I do think there's a good opportunity for the Texans in this one. But I'd be lying to you if I said that I can't go with the Buffalo Bills here. The reality is the Davis Mills thing that's been going on in Houston has been really fun to watch, and I've actually taken the Texans their last 2 games with Davis Mills at the helm. But they were facing a Jacksonville Jaguars team that is suspect depending on the week that they're playing, and then you have a Tennessee Titans team last week that I admittedly gave them a really good game all the way up to the finish line. This time around, Buffalo, I expect that secondary to continue to do what they do, and that's shut down things through the air, be problematic. The pass rush is starting to come together over there in Buffalo as well. And I just feel like with the lack of offensive production we have seen from this Houston Texans team, I'm a little bit concerned. Like, you're not going to get what Jacksonville did against you a couple of weeks ago, where the secondary just completely falls apart and Davis Mills is having this like monumental fourth quarter. I just don't really see that with the way Buffalo plays defense, the way they're coached. It's going to be a tough one for both sides, admittedly, to get points. So I like Buffalo in this one. But I do think something in the ballpark of like 24-17, lower scoring affair. Defenses are definitely winning out. I wouldn't be shocked if you maybe see like an ugly Josh Allen turnover, maybe even 2. Some heroics have to come into play where he wins this football game late. But I expect it to be one of those slower-ish types of games where if you're like a fan of good defensive football, this is probably your game. If you like points and high-scoring offense, probably not for you. I'm a big defensive guy, though, so I love watching defenses just choke the life out of offenses. But give me the Bills 24-17. Slower contest. Not the most exciting, but one that if you appreciate defensive slugfests, you'll enjoy. As always, if you made it to the end, I greatly appreciate it. Comment down below. Let me hear from you, your thoughts, your opinions on the matchup, who's coming out on top and why. But until next time, actually, I'll see you all on Friday to make full predictions for Sunday's matchup, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out. So until then, see you all next time. Have a good one.